For 2 days, the desert stayed silent. The readings from beneath the surface dropped to almost nothing. The scientists at the base began to relax again. They laughed, worked, and even played music in the halls. For a moment, it felt like everything had returned to normal, but Leora knew better. The silence of the remnant was not peace. It was patience. Marcus could see it in her eyes whenever she stared at the horizon. She would stand by the observation window for hours, still and watchful, as if listening to something no one else could hear. On the 3rd night, she turned to him suddenly. "It's moving again," she said quietly. "The seal is cracking." Marcus looked at the screen on her wrist device. The readings were faint, but the pattern was their slow rhythm, like the start of a heartbeat. He rubbed his face, tired but alert. "How long until it wakes?" "Hours," she said. "Maybe less." He exhaled. "Then we end it for good." Leora nodded. "Yes, but not here. The containment device cannot hold it twice. We will have to destroy the core completely." Marcus frowned. "Destroy it how?" "With its own energy," she said. "Overload the chamber, trigger a collapse. The remnant will be consumed in its own field." He stared at her. "That'll kill anything near it." Her gaze didn't waver. Yes, the storm had already begun again by the time they reached the rover. The wind howled across the desert, carrying red dust that sparkled in the lightning flashes. The ground trembled faintly under their boots. Marcus drove through the storm without headlights. Leora guided him by instinct, watching the pulse patterns on her wrist device. Her expression was calm, but her hands were tight around the edge of the console. When they reached the canyon, the sand was gone from the entrance. The ground had cracked open, revealing a deep, dark chasm. Faint blue light shimmered inside it, pulsing slowly like breath. Marcus looked down. "It's already breaking through," "Yes," Leora said. "We must go down." He strapped his gear and followed her. They descended along the narrow ledge, the air vibrating around them. As they moved lower, they began to hear the whispers again, voices without bodies, echoing in their minds. Why resist what was promised? "You've built machines to serve you. I only offer perfection." Marcus gritted his teeth. "Ignore it," he muttered. Letta didn't reply. Her eyes were distant, focused on the faint glow below. "It remembers me," she whispered. "It knows my bloodline." The voice changed, soft, almost kind. "Leora Sirith, daughter of the Dominion. You are not my enemy." "You are my creation," Marcus shouted into the darkness. "You're nothing but an echo." The whisper laughed, and the walls trembled. They reached the lower chamber. The ancient platform still stood, but it was cracked through the center. The floating rings spun wildly, throwing arcs of light that cut through the dust-filled air. At the heart of it, the remnant had taken form. It was no longer invisible energy. It had shaped itself into a figure of light and shadow, tall and shifting, with no face but 1,000 flickering eyes. Leora stepped forward. "It's not yet whole," she said. "We still have time." Marcus readied his weapon, though he knew bullets meant nothing here. "Tell me what to do." She handed him a new crystal node, different from before. "When I connect the device, overload the conduit with your pulse. It will trigger a chain reaction. The remnant will try to stop us. It will use our fears. You must stay clear in your thoughts." He nodded. "And you?" "I will hold the core long enough for the energy to build. You must leave before it collapses." He shook his head immediately. "Not happening." She turned her gaze toward him, calm and unflinching. "You don't understand. The containment will destroy everything within the field. I won't survive, and neither will I," he said. Her eyes softened. For the first time since they met, her voice trembled slightly. "Human," she whispered, "why must you always do this? Why can you never run when you should?" "Because that's who we are," he said quietly. "We stay." She looked at him for a long time, and something unspoken passed between them. Something deep, simple, and final. Then she turned back to the core. "Then stay," she said softly, "and remember." The floor shuddered as she pressed her palm to the control ring. The ancient symbols flared to life. The chamber filled with light, and the remnant's voice rose like thunder. You cannot cage the infinite. The light expanded, forming tendrils that lashed toward them. Marcus fired instinctively, the blasts passing harmlessly through energy. The ground beneath him cracked open, showing flashes of memory images of his past, his fears, his regrets. He saw his old unit lost in battle years ago. He saw the faces of those he couldn't save. The remnant spoke through their voices. You fail everyone, human. Even now, you fail her, he shouted. I'm still here. And forced the crystal into the conduit. The control ring flared red. Leora raised both hands, channeling the energy through her body. Her silver eyes glowed with unbearable light. The air around her shimmered, as if on fire. Marcus, she called. Now. He slammed his hand against the activation pad. The floor burst with light. The remnant screamed. The sound was not heard. It was felt. A vibration that reached deep into bone and thought. For a moment, the world disappeared. Marcus felt himself floating weightless, silent, surrounded by white. He saw fragments of Leora's memories flashing around him. The Cirith homeworld, oceans of silver, skies that never darkened. He saw her training as a protector, her vow to guard the seal forever. Then her voice came through the light. Marcus, can you hear me? Yes, he said. Where are you? Here, she said softly. Between the echoes, he turned. Her figure appeared beside him, still glowing, still calm. She smiled faintly. It's working. The core is collapsing. You can still escape. He said, Come with me. She shook her head. If I leave, it will rise again. The seal must hold, and only my link can finish it. He reached out, but his hand passed through her. There has to be another way. There isn't, she said gently. But do not grieve. You gave me what I had forgotten. What's that? Choice. The white light turned gold. The remnant's final cry filled the void, then faded into silence. The chamber shook one last time, and then everything went dark. When Marcus opened his eyes, he was lying on the sand outside the canyon. The storm had ended. The air was still. The sun was rising over the horizon, painting the desert in soft light. The canyon was gone. Only smooth rock remained, as if nothing had ever been there. He tried to stand, but his legs trembled. His suit was scorched, his helmet cracked. Still, he looked around. Leora. He shouted, no answer. He searched until his strength failed. Then, as he fell to his knees, he saw a small silver insignia half buried in the sand. Her emblem. He picked it up and held it tight. The metal was warm, as if it had just been in her hand. A faint whisper passed through the air. Barely a breath. Remember. He closed his eyes and whispered, I will. Days later, rescue ships arrived from orbit. The Cirith Council sent envoys to confirm the remnant's destruction. The scientists called it a miracle. Marcus didn't speak much about what happened. He gave his report, stayed through the debrief, and then stood alone on the observation deck. The desert below looked peaceful again. The seal held, but part of him felt the silence differently now. It wasn't emptiness. It was waiting. He kept Leora's insignia around his neck, its faint glow still alive under the sunlight. Sometimes when the wind passed through the station, he thought he heard her voice again, soft, patient, knowing. Walk slowly. Know what you are doing? He smiled faintly. Years later, stories of the Epsilon 3 incident spread across the colonies. Some said a human and a Cirith together stopped the awakening of an ancient power. Others said the Cirith envoy had vanished into light, leaving only her mark behind. No one truly knew what happened beneath those sands. But one thing was certain, since that day, no Cirith had ever looked at a human the same way again. They had seen what humanity could do when faced with something beyond. Their strength, stay, fight and remember, and for Marcus Hale. The story was simple. He had met a woman who walked past him slowly, knowing exactly what she was doing. She had walked into danger, into destiny, and into the history of two species. and though she was gone, her presence remained in the wind, in the light, in the quiet hum of the machines. When new recruits asked him what she was like, he always gave the same answer. She was the calm before every storm, he would say. And when she walked past you, you didn't just watch, she followed. He looked once more toward the endless horizon, where two suns rose over the desert. The light caught the insignia at his chest, and for a second it shimmered. As if reflecting a distant memory, Marcus smiled again. She knew exactly what she was doing, he whispered. And so did I. The research outpost drifted above the ice moon of Orion 7, far from any busy trade route or human colony. Only a few lights blinked on its metal surface, marking the life within. Inside that quiet station, Commander Elias Trent worked alone most nights. He had been assigned by the United Earth Council to observe an alien diplomatic colony and maintain communication between them and human command. It was supposed to be routine work data gathering, cultural exchange, and long reports that no one read carefully. Elias had been a soldier once, not a scientist. His calm face and sharp eyes still looked like those of a man who expected danger. Yet in this lonely station, there was nothing but silence, the hum of machines, and the endless field of white clouds below. The aliens he worked with, the Narathe, were distant, polite, and difficult to understand. They spoke in harmonic tones that their translators turned into dull English sentences. They avoided small talk and never smiled. He didn't mind it. After years of chaos on the frontier worlds, silence was peace. One night, while checking the outer communication relays, Elias heard something strange. A faint sound came through the static. It wasn't interference. It was a whisper at first. He thought it was a glitch in the translator. But when he replayed the recording, the words were clear. It said his name. Elias. He froze. No one should be using that channel. It was locked to his private system. He listened again. The whisper was soft, almost human. The kind of voice that didn't belong in the cold air of a space station. A woman's voice? He tried to trace the origin. But the signal came from outside the normal grid-on, unregistered frequency, echoing off the moon's surface. He ran diagnostics. Nothing. It shouldn't exist. Still, curiosity got the better of him. Elias leaned closer to the console. "Who is this?" He asked no answer. He waited a long moment, eyes on the flickering display. Only static replied. Finally, he shut the system down and went back to work. But that night, he couldn't sleep. The whisper felt too real. It carried warmth, like someone breathing near his ear. He kept hearing it in his mind even after he closed his eyes. The next morning, the alien ambassador visited. The Narathe leader, called Solankai, stood tall with crystal-like skin and eyes that shifted colors like deep water. His voice was calm and slow. "Commander Trent," Solankai said, "you seem disturbed. Your heart rate is elevated. Have your dreams troubled you?" Elias frowned. The aliens had advanced sensors that could read vital signs even through clothing. "I'm fine," he said. "Just a long night running diagnostics." Solankai tilted his head. "Do not stare too long into the silence of this world, Commander. Some frequencies are not meant for human ears." The warning was strange, almost poetic, but Elias didn't reply. He had learned not to ask too many questions around them. That evening, he returned to the cum room. He told himself he was only checking for interference again. Yet deep down, he wanted to hear it. He wanted to prove that the whisper was real. He activated the receiver. The room filled with a faint hum. Static rolled across the speakers. For minutes, nothing happened. Then, just as he was about to turn away, he heard it again. Elias. The voice was soft, trembling, like someone who hadn't spoken in years. He felt the hairs rise on his neck. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. "Identify yourself." There was a pause, a faint exhale through the line. Then she said, "You shouldn't be here yet." His fingers froze above the controls. "What do you mean?" No answer. The signal cut. The room fell silent again. Elias leaned back, confused and uneasy. The words repeated in his head. You shouldn't be here yet. It wasn't a threat. It sounded like sorrow or regret. He opened the log files again, tracing the coordinates of the transmission. It came from somewhere inside the alien section of the station, the restricted archives. But those rooms were sealed by the Narathi themselves. No human could access them unless someone or something inside was sending messages directly to him. The next day, Elias went down the main corridor that separated the human and alien sections. The air there felt colder. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, shifting like mist. The Narathi guards watched him silently as he passed. They didn't stop him, but their eyes followed him. He reached the heavy door marked with alien script. His translation wristband flickered, trying to read it. It gave one rough word: memory. The door was locked. He tried his clearance card. It flashed red. Access denied. He turned to leave, but something made him stop. From behind the door came a faint vibration like a low hum. He pressed his ear to the metal surface. It wasn't mechanical. It was rhythmic, slow, almost like breathing. He stepped back, uneasy. The moment he did, his wristband beeped with a sudden data burst. A message appeared on the small screen. "Don't be afraid." He stared at it. There was no sender ID. The device wasn't even connected to the comm grid. That night, he didn't report any of it. He knew command would call it stress or isolation sickness. He'd seen enough officers lose credibility that way. Still, the whisper haunted him. Every sound in the station seemed to echo her voice. 3 nights later, it returned, louder, clearer. He woke from a dream, heart racing, and the sound came directly through the speaker above his bunk. "Elias, please, don't forget." He sat up, breathing hard. "Forget what?" he said aloud. "You promised." He threw off the blanket and ran to the console, fingers flying over the controls. "Promised what? Who are you?" The voice trembled. "I waited. They sealed me away, but I remembered your name." Then silence again. Elias stared at the empty screen. This wasn't an echo, not a glitch. The voice was intelligent, emotional. It knew things it shouldn't. He opened the station database and searched for any human name linked to the alien archives. Only one reference appeared, an ancient log written long before human contact. The translation was incomplete, but it mentioned the Keeper of Voices, an entity of energy and thought. Trapped between time layers, after a failed experiment, in the margin of that log, written in English letters centuries old, was a name: Elias Trent. His name. He felt his pulse quicken. It wasn't possible. He was the first human assigned here. The record's timestamp was older than the first. Warp drive. He downloaded the data and read through the broken text. She calls across ages to the one who carries the same pattern. The sound of her voice reaches through the fold. The name anchors her. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of confusion pressing down. Was this a coincidence? A translation error? Or was he part of something written before he existed? The next day, the Narathi avoided him. Even Solankai refused to speak during their routine meeting. When Elias asked if the archives contained information about the Keeper of Voices, Solankai's usually calm face hardened. "You should not read that name," the alien said quietly. "She once ruled what you call space and time. Her voice can move through worlds. When she speaks a name, it binds destiny." Elias frowned. "Then why did she say mine?" Solinka's eyes dimmed. "Because long ago, a human said hers first." Elias stared, not understanding. "There were no humans here back then." "There are things older than history," Solankai replied and turned away. "If you hear her again, do not answer." That night, Elias sat in the dark with the comm system open. He couldn't stop thinking about what the alien had said. A voice that could cross time? A name that bound destinies. It sounded like myth, not science. Yet he had heard her clear and alive. He whispered to himself, "Why me?" And the answer came instantly, through the speaker, soft and close. "Because you kept your word once." His breath caught. The voice was gentle, filled with sadness and hope at the same time. "You're real," he said. "Real enough to remember you. He swallowed hard. What do you want from me? To remember me too. Static filled the room again, and her voice faded into it like mist dissolving in sunlight. For hours, he sat there, staring at the frozen screen, the hum of the station surrounding him. His logical mind tried to explain it: tan, unknown signal, a clever interference pattern, some hidden alien test. But his heart knew better. There had been emotion in that voice, and when she spoke his name, it hadn't felt like a stranger. It had felt like someone who once knew him very well. He walked to the observation window, looking down at the ice moon below, the pale light reflected in his tired eyes. He felt smaller than ever in that endless void. Maybe, he thought, this wasn't just about science or signals. Maybe some part of humanity was connected to something older, something that could still whisper across time, calling names written before birth. As he stood there, the intercom flickered once more. Just a faint sound, almost too quiet to catch. Elias. He turned sharply. The air seemed to hold its breath. The whisper came again, calm, certain, and filled with memory. For 2 days after that whisper, Elias hardly slept. He went through the same routines, sent reports, met the Narethi delegation, but part of him stayed in that cum room. He kept hearing her voice in his head, soft and certain. I found you. It should have been impossible. He was a soldier, not a dreamer. Yet something inside him wanted to believe that she was real. When night came, he returned to the console again. He told himself it was just to check the systems. But deep down, he hoped to hear her again. The stars beyond the glass looked colder tonight. He opened the frequency logs, searching for the unregistered signal. The coordinates didn't make sense. They shifted every few minutes, almost as if the source was moving through time, not space. The readings looped backward, echoing themselves. He began recording everything. "This is Commander Elias Trent," he said into the microphone. "Unknown transmission continues. Voice is female, human-like." Responding again for analysis, he waited. Silence. Then faintly, "You're still trying to understand." He jumped slightly. The sound was clear, gentle, right next to his ear. "Who are you?" he asked again. "You used to know me?" "Before the walls closed." "Before what walls?" "They called them the folds. They trapped my voice inside them. But your name reached through." Her tone was sorrowful, fragile. Elias leaned closer to the mic. "Are you Narethi? Some kind of signal ghost?" "No," she said softly. "I was human once. Like you." He froze. "That's impossible." "Everything is impossible until it happens again." Static filled the channel. The signal spiked and then vanished. Elias stared at the empty screen. She had spoken like she truly remembered him, but that couldn't be true. He had never met her. Unless, the message wasn't from this time at all. The next morning, the Narethi systems began to behave strangely. Lights flickered, gravity panels pulsed, and several alien technicians spoke in anxious tones. Their language carried tension. Elias approached Solenkai, who stood by the energy core, watching the shifting lights. "What's going on?" Elias asked. Eyes reflected blue and green at once. "The folds are moving," he said. "I don't know what that means. The fractures between time layers. Something old is pressing against them." Solenkai turned to him. "You have heard her again, haven't you?" Elias hesitated. "How would you know that?" "The pattern in your voice waves has changed," the alien said simply. "Humans call it resonance. She is touching your signal." Elias frowned. "Who is she?" "You called her something before the Keeper of Voices?" Solenkai looked uneasy. "Long before your kind crossed the stars, she lived among us. She tried to hold the timelines together. When the first fold began to collapse, she entered it to seal it from within. No one returned? In my name? Why is it in your records?" Solenkai's face darkened. "Because she said it before she vanished." Elias felt a chill run through him. The alien continued, "The universe repeats in circles. Patterns return, wearing different faces. Perhaps you carry the same signal she once knew." "That sounds like myth," Elias muttered. All truths begin as myths, Selenkai replied quietly. That night, Elias couldn't resist. He reopened the signal and called out softly, If you can hear me again, talk to me. At first, nothing answered. Then the screen blinked, and symbols he couldn't read began forming lines of alien script and human letters mixing together. Slowly, words took shape. I waited for you. He typed back through the interface. Who are you? After a few seconds, she replied, Do you still not remember? He shook his head, whispering no. Then I will help you remember. The lights in the room dimmed. A hum filled the air, low and rhythmic. The air shimmered in front of him like heat rising from desert ground. A figure began to form a faint projection of light and shadow. A woman, tall, graceful, her features blurred but human. Her eyes glowed faintly with silver light. Elias stood still, afraid to move. She looked at him with sadness and wonder. Your face is the same, she said softly. Even across centuries. He swallowed hard. You're not real. I am what's left of her, she said. The fold keeps my body trapped, but fragments of my voice escaped through the frequencies your people use. You carried the echo of me in your pattern, and it answered when I called. Why me? He asked. She smiled faintly. Because you promised to bring me home? The words struck him deeply, though he didn't understand them. When? Before the war between stars? Before they locked me in light? Elias shook his head. That can't be. Humans weren't even traveling space then. You were something else, she said. Another form. Another age. You called yourself Elias even then. Her tone was gentle, but her expression was full of pain. When I spoke your name, the walls weakened. But the Narathi fear me. They will try to silence you. Why? Because freeing me might break the fold completely. Time would flow again. They built their world around its stillness. The projection flickered. I have little time. If you wish to remember, go to the chamber marked memory. The key is in your bloodline. Then she vanished. Elias stood there long after the image disappeared. His heart pounded. The air still felt warm where she had stood. He looked down at his hands, trembling slightly. The key is in your bloodline. What did that mean? He opened his personnel file. His ancestors were ordinary colonists, soldiers, engineers, no one special. But when he looked closely, he saw something odd. The first recorded Trent in the archives was listed as E. Trent, 2195 AD. That file had no birthplace, no records before that. As if that person had simply appeared in history. Maybe she was right. Maybe there was a link between them that went deeper than time. The next morning, prepared to enter the restricted alien section. He used a maintenance pass and forced open a side hatch leading toward the chamber marked memory. The corridor was cold, filled with strange mist. The lights flickered as he walked. He reached the heavy door. Again, the translation band tried to read the alien script. This time, the word came clearer. EchoVault. Elias placed his hand against the door. It felt warm, almost alive. The moment his skin touched the surface, the locks began to move on their own. The door opened with a slow sigh. Inside, the chamber glowed with soft blue light. Floating crystals hung in the air, each humming faintly. Lines of energy ran along the walls, pulsing like veins. In the center stood a tall column of glass containing swirling light. He stepped closer. The light shifted, and inside it, faint outlines moved, faces, shapes, whispers. Voices filled the air, all speaking at once. He could almost hear words beneath the noise. Then, one voice rose above the rest. Elias. He froze. The sound came from the center column. The lights brightened. The woman's figure appeared again, this time clearer. Her hair shimmered like silver threads, her eyes deep and sad. You found me, he whispered. What is this place? The last echo of the fold, she said. A prison made of time itself. They sealed me here when I tried to stop the collapse. The Narathi called it mercy. I called it silence. Why did you call my name? Because it was the only one that could reach me, she said softly. You were there when I fell into the fold. You tried to pull me out. I held your hand until the light took me. Elias felt his throat tighten. He wanted to deny it, but something inside him, the faint ache of memory, made him hesitate. He could almost feel it, a flash of light, a hand slipping away. Her voice calling his name through the storm. I don't remember, he whispered. You will, she said. But you must open the vault completely. The Narrathi will stop you. They fear the return of movement through time. But if you open it, both our timelines will meet again. He looked at the control panels around the chamber. Alien symbols glowed faintly, waiting. I can't do this alone, he said. You won't, she replied. You never did. Her image flickered, and the crystals in the room pulsed brighter, reacting to her presence. Find the 3 resonance cores, she said quickly. They are hidden in this station. When they align, the vault will open. Then her image shattered into light, scattering through the chamber like fireflies. Elias left the room quietly, heart racing. He knew he couldn't tell anyone. The Narrathi would shut down the vault and possibly erase him if they knew he had entered it. He began searching for the resonance cores. The first he found inside the reactor by a small crystal sphere embedded near the coolant valves. The second lay behind the observation deck panels, pulsing faintly with energy. The third, he realized, was inside his own communication console, the same place he'd first heard her voice. As he prepared to connect the 3 cores, alarms echoed through the station. The aliens had detected the energy shift, so appeared in the doorway, calm but firm. Commander Trent, he said, you have touched what should remain sealed. She's alive, Elias said. You lied about her being gone? Solonkai's eyes darkened. She is not alive. She is the storm that breaks time. If you open that vault, the past will flood into the present. All of us will cease to be what we are. Elias stepped closer, defiant. Then maybe it's time someone did. The alien lowered his head. You will bring ruin. Or salvation, Elias said quietly. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Solonkai turned away. If you must open it, he said softly, remember, this what returns may not remember love as you do. Elias didn't answer. He gathered the cores and locked himself in the cum chamber. The lights dimmed as he connected each sphere into the main array. The energy readings climbed higher and higher, glowing white across the controls.